Hi, I'm Sean, a wildlife photographer based here in San Francisco, and today I'm here to show you around beautiful Golden Gate Park. I'm going to show you around some of my favorite spots to capture wildlife and show you how you can get some great pictures of your own. You'll even hear from a local expert, a tour guide for wildlife and nature around Golden Gate Park. I'll start off with some of the wildlife you can see during the daytime, and then we'll move on to some of the more elusive nighttime predators. So the first location I want to highlight is the recently renamed Blue Heron Lake, previously known as Stowe Lake. You'll find all kinds of birds here, including blue herons, of course, egrets, ducks, American coots, geese, stellar jays, hummingbirds, and everybody's favorite bird, seagulls. Walking around the perimeter of the lake, you'll see birds everywhere, and maybe even the occasional turtle or other wildlife. If you want an even better view, you can rent a boat at the boathouse and get right in the middle of the action. This place is great for bird watching and also has a big island in the middle with a beautiful waterfall and some sweeping views at the top over the Golden Gate Bridge. And here's your guide to the island. Crossing a bridge onto the island, you'll see that waterfall, as well as the nearby Chinese pavilion that can make a great backdrop for your photos. Hike up any of the trails to the top, I like the one right beside the waterfall, and enjoy the views over the city. There's also a small reservoir lake on the island. I don't usually see a ton here, but you might be lucky and see something like the namesake blue heron. So do some laps around the lake and see what you can find, or sit on a bench and let the nature come to you. Before our next location, I wanted to have a chat with a local wildlife tour guide to learn more about his experience in the park. Taking a tour with him was actually what inspired me to start looking for wildlife in the city, rather than trekking out into the wilderness every time.
Hi, I'm Dave Meservy. I'm the owner and operator of Beasts of the Bay Area, which is a wildlife and photography tour company focusing on the diversity of animals here in Golden Gate Park. And the main goal is to show people that we are sharing a habitat with these animals and that they're not as elusive or foreign to them as they might think. I think what's different about urban photography is the spacing between being out in a standard kind of wildlife situation. But what we do have here in the park is easier to find because their hunting grounds and general territories are a lot smaller. I think the #1 way to be respectful with interacting with wildlife is to give them their space and to realize that they are, even though they're in the city, they are still just animals living in an environment that is native to them. The tips I have for beginners are, this is advice shared with most wildlife photographers back and forth, but one is be there. You have to go outside in order to find these guys. So if you're ever debating between going out and shooting or staying in and doing something else, really decide what you want to do for the day. Be aware. Don't just use your eyes. You have to listen for a lot of animals as well, and that can really help track them down, whether it's owls, hawks, other large animals, or even small ones. Birds can move really quickly, and you can hear for them a lot sooner than you'll see them. My favorite animals to photograph in the park are probably the two that are most active around dawn and dusk, which are great horned owls and coyotes. They're really hard to find during the day, typically, especially the owls. So when you only have an hour to shoot them, each morning or each afternoon, it's really special when you capture those moments. The Big Five is actually a term that they use on safari in Africa, and it's a name for the big 5 animals that you traditionally see while you're out or that you should look for. So I came up with a version here in the park where we've got some unique animals and some common ones, but ones that are tougher to see. And I decided the list should be the great blue heron, red-tailed or red-shouldered hawk, the coyotes, the owls, and then the bison, which is a little sneaky because the bison aren't native to the park and they are technically in an enclosure, but I think they're a unique experience to see here in the park that not everybody knows about.
And speaking of bison, I'm on the west side of the park here at the Bison Paddock, where we have our own herd of bison that live right here in the park. This little bison sanctuary has been here since the 1800s when the bison were at threat of going extinct. And though it's not technically wildlife, I think this is a great place to practice animal photography with fairly stationary subjects in a contained area. The whole thing is surrounded by fences, which can be a bit of a challenge to shoot through, but if you zoom in enough, they pretty much go away. So I saved my favorite spot for last. I'm down here at the lily pond, which is where I've been catching a lot of shots of coyotes and owls late at night. There's also a bunch of birds around here, notably the green heron, which is apparently pretty rare in this area. But I want to talk about my favorite animals, same as Dave, owls and coyotes. Starting with the great horned owls, which are actually relatively easy to find in the park if you have the patience. I'd recommend heading out to a wooded area about an hour before sunset, which is when the owls start becoming more active. As sunset approaches, you'll start to hear the classic hoot sound that'll lead you right to them. Once you learn their nightly patterns, you can start to find them earlier in the evening before they start hooting. Owls make great subjects because they tend to stay relatively still and model for you. They also tend to travel in pairs, so if you see one, look out for another. One of my favorite animals to shoot, but also one of the most challenging, is coyotes. About 100 coyotes live in San Francisco, and many of those live in Golden Gate Park. They're a bit scary at first, but as long as you're smart and keep your distance, you shouldn't be in any danger. Just don't bring a dog along with you, and absolutely do not bait or feed them. When coyotes lose their fear of humans, we run into trouble. You'll usually start hearing coyotes call for their pack around sunset with a distinct high-pitched yelping and howling. After this, they'll usually be on the hunt for squirrels and other prey in the park, which is your perfect opportunity to find them. Coyotes tend to be hard to photograph because they come out late at night when there's low light, and they also tend to move relatively fast, so you really have to have a handle on your camera settings to get a great shot. But when you do get that shot, it's really rewarding. My favorite coyote photo I've taken is still this pup I caught at Point Reyes. I have another video on that, linked down below if you want to see it. And that's my guide to wildlife in Golden Gate Park. It's amazing to see how much wildlife you can find in the middle of a city. If you like this video, leave me a like down below and subscribe so you don't miss more content like this. Leave me a comment down below with what content you'd want to see next. If there's a lot of interest, maybe I could do a part 2 on the park and explore some more locations. That's all for now. I'll see you next time.